Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us here today. My name is Øyvind. I'm the CEO at Whereby. And today we'll be talking about, amongst other things, low cost of ownership, which is something we feel very passionate about. And we do talk a lot about this internally. So we're glad that we can share this more widely with others because the stuff that goes on behind the scenes is not often shared enough. Today, I'm joined by our fantastic CTO, Andy. Thanks for joining me, Andy, and glad that we're able to have this chat together.
I'm very happy to be here.
Good stuff. All right, so without further ado, let's jump right in. And starting with this term, total cost of ownership. What do we mean when we say that, Andy?
Yeah, it's sort of a term that has been co-opted from the hardware world originally, but when we talk about cost of ownership, what we're talking about is the total R&D, operational, maintenance, and feature evolution spend, mostly in the form of technical staff, to create and maintain some kind of technical solution. And in particular, when companies and technical teams are looking for a technical solution to some problem, it's usually the ongoing cost that gets forgotten, that gets minimized. And in particular, when it comes to video, that's where a lot of the spend and a lot of the cost actually is, which is why we wind up talking about this so much in the real-time video space. It's one thing to get up and running quickly, which is definitely something that we offer and Whereby, and we're very passionate about as well. But then the cost that you're going to spend to maintain the solution, to evolve the feature set, to make sure that it maintains compliance with the latest security standards, to add features and capabilities as the world of real-time video evolves. It's all of that we're talking about when we say sort of total cost of ownership. And for something like real-time video, it can look like multiple teams worth of investment over many years. It can be quite expensive.
And so, Andy, knowing this term then, total cost of ownership, could you explain why the TCO, as we for short at Whereby, is advantageous compared to another solution?
So yeah, it's about the way that Whereby offers our product in the market. So rather than require our customers to take ownership of large amounts of code in order to have a working real-time video solution, our approach is to enable our customers to only own as much code as they want, right? And the word own is really important, and it's worth unpacking. By own, I mean basically who operates it in a runtime environment, who fixes it when it breaks, who actually has to engage if a feature needs to change or something needs to evolve. And most solutions in the market today, while there are others that help you get up and running fairly quickly, similar to the way Whereby does, most solutions in the market require you to take ownership of large amounts of code. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of lines of front-end code for most solutions. And the irony is that all of that code basically does the same thing. It organizes a grid of faces and manages the back-end media infrastructure. And so at Whereby, our position is you would probably rather spend the staff and the time and the energy that you would be spending on that ownership, on actually running that code and maintaining that code over time, in other places. And so that's what Whereby approach is you can be up and running in under 5 minutes and only take ownership of 3 lines of code. You can then sort of evolve the experience and customize it and make your systems interoperate in increasingly sophisticated ways with Whereby embedded, but that's not required of you. And you're, again, sort of only writing, only owning, only running as much code as you want and need in order to make the totality of your solution exactly the way you want it to be.
And this is something, as we know, when we engage and we speak to a lot of customers, one thing that keeps coming back up is that many of them are contemplating building their own video platform, right? This is the one thing that we keep hearing. And many have actually tried and then say, no, like the total cost of ownership here and the ongoing is just way too big, and not to mention the technical quality that you need in your own team. But what are some of the challenges with building your own video platform? Why are we hearing from so many customers that is actually ends up being a huge waste of time?
It's hugely challenging, and in some respects, the technology can be a bit misleading because WebRTC is wonderful. It is very easy to create a WebRTC based solution that is peer-to-peer, that enables you to do a very basic video call. But when you graduate from that into more sophisticated meetings in terms of the size, in terms of the scale, in terms of many different media streams, people sharing lots of different content, people enabling and disabling audio and video throughout, and then even more sophisticated features like breakout sessions and putting workflow around the conversation as a lot of our customers do. That's when you quickly run into much higher, deeper technical challenges. And in particular, the first thing you need to solve for is how do you put a global media infrastructure in place that can deliver a consistently great quality of service, audio and video, for many hundreds of participants at once in a single conversation where those participants may be anywhere on Earth. And when you start to think about that challenge at that kind of scale, you're talking about a multi-year effort to find the right infrastructure partners, to find and build the right software solution and knit that entire thing together so that it performs, consistently at that kind of scale. And that's the first challenge, right? Then if you solve that problem on your own, the next challenge you have is building out a great front-end experience on top of it, right? So like, it's one thing to sort of take a reference implementation that somebody's put out there, say something from Twilio, right? Implement that yourself and have a very basic kind of, grid of media type of experience. It's a completely different thing to actually customize the way that entire experience works, and in particular to make it feel more human, to make it a little bit closer to what it's like to have conversations in person, and in some cases to customize it to meet the specifics of your use case. Building a really, really great experience in that regard is also incredibly expensive. And that's where Whereby's sort of key difference is we allow you with a few lines of code to inherit something that we've had in the market for 5 to 6 years and have been testing really thoroughly against a huge customer base, and that is consistently recognized by institutions like G2 and the New York Times as the leading experience that you can find in the market. So with Whereby Embedded, you can inherit sort of all of that goodness that exists today and will continue to exist as we evolve that experience in the future with only 3 lines of code. And that's the key difference.
I think this is such a crucial point, right? As if we look at ourselves, even as an end user, right? Like we don't really care about what's going on in the background, right? We don't really care about the technical challenges that comes with building something that works across the globe with hundreds and hundreds of participants across millions of users, right? What we care about is the experience that we have when we're actually in the meeting itself. And so this point that we hear back a lot from our customers is that Whereby just feels different. It just feels more human in a sense. And for our team that has spent an enormous amount of time researching that and finding something that should feel more human, and hearing that back from our customers is actually hugely valuable to us. So I think that's a crucial part, that user experience is very difficult to sort of like replicate. We'll dive more into that a bit later as well, but I want to touch on the media infrastructure itself. And how would you explain that, why Whereby is a great choice from a media quality perspective, right? Like, what are the investments that we have done over many, many years to be able to deliver a universally high quality experience?
Yeah, so the thing to remember is that Whereby began as a consumer-facing meetings product, right? So it was an alternative to many of the popular meeting brands that everybody knows and loves today, and we still operate that business. So what it gave us the opportunity to do, and what we built and what we differentiated ourselves on for a long time, was not only that great sort of front end user experience, but also deep investments in the media side to make sure the conversation felt as natural as possible. And as a result of doing that, not only did we acquire a fairly large and fairly loyal customer base, but we also attracted customers from parts of the world that are historically quite underserved by technical infrastructure, and in particular the type of technical infrastructure that is needed to facilitate real-time video. And that led us to actually go optimize our media infrastructure in ways that others in the market hadn't. And it's a combination of the things that we do in the media backend in terms of which infrastructure partners we've chosen to work with in which parts of the globe, whose combination of hardware spec and proximity to our customers is sort of advantageous. It's investments that we've made in the software that actually runs on that media infrastructure, and I have a feeling we'll talk about that in more detail in a minute. And it's investments in the front end experience itself and the way the media actually handles in the browser, right? That enables us to deliver something that feels a little bit more natural and in general has a sort of higher quality of service in terms of audio and video that's being delivered. In addition, we also have this large customer base that we're constantly serving on the meeting side. So when somebody is looking at Whereby as a solution for their own, video problems, right? Whereby's in a place where we're constantly testing our own technical investments against the meetings customer base, if that makes any sense, right? We have millions of active users per month, and we get to make sure we have an opportunity to make sure that our media infrastructure serves them really well and our front end experience serves them really well. And that in turn is goodness that the people buying Whereby Embedded get as well.
And that makes a ton of sense because we do know that we also, like you said, we have a lot of loyal users and a customer base that has been with us for a long time. And the best part is that they're highly opinionated, right? So they give us tremendous amounts of valuable insights in what this product should be able to do, how it should be able to perform, what it should look like, etc. Right? Like, so all of this rolls up to this one single strategy of just continuing to develop and to invest in the meeting experience itself. And so how does Whereby then ensure that we are delivering an industry-leading experience every single day?
We're making very deep investments in observability and testability of WebRTC components at all levels. So for us, the availability of our service is sort of at the top of our list of priorities, right? Especially because other companies and other businesses rely on us being up 24/7 and being able to deliver a consistently great video conferencing experience at all times of the day, at all corners of the globe. So for us, our operational posture and our availability is key. So we've been making deep investments in what the technology called Observe RTC, and deep investments in our own sort of automated testing at many layers of our stack to ensure that we're consistently delivering a really great experience, especially around the sort of core media handling and the behavior of the media stage, the meeting stage itself. In addition, like I said before, we have millions of active users of both the Whereby Meetings product and Whereby Embedded every month. And on the Whereby Meetings side in particular, that is a place where we can experiment much more with our user experience and with our operational posture and our availability and find the things that work really well so that our customers that have come to rely on Whereby Embedded to run their business, one, we're not testing or evaluating our new capabilities against their business and their customers, but rather bringing these capabilities to them once we're sure that they actually work, right? And they're also getting the benefit of all of the very specific investment that we've made in delivering that high quality experience and sort of high quality, deeply tested, deeply sort of battle tested software, if that makes any sense.
Totally. And so, final question then on the media infrastructure, right? We hear this term SFU, and it's a critical component in offering a service at this scale, right? But could you tell me a bit about SFUs? What are they, and why do they matter?
Yeah, it's a sort of a WebRTC term. SFU stands for Selective Forwarding Unit. It is the piece of software that is running on our media infrastructure hardware that handles the distribution of media globally, right? So when you're in a video conference and you're having a conversation with 10 to 20 different people, your browser is directly communicating with one of our SFUs and is streaming media to that endpoint. And that endpoint is then dealing with replication of that media across the globe so it can be received by the people you're talking to from both a video and audio perspective in near real time, right? With only, milliseconds of delay. And so it's an absolutely critical component to get right. And whereby we have recently actually migrated our SFU infrastructure to a new solution that's based on an open source solution out there called Media Soup. However, even starting with that open source solution, in order to sort of maximize its capability, we've had to make a bunch of deep investments in both layers kind of on top of it that customize the way the SFU behaves and the particular business rules it follows in terms of handling media. And we've made a number of contributions back to the open source community as well, which we're excited about. And we'll be, of course, continuing to do those things and participate in that community as part of delivering this experience.
All right, so let's switch gears and talk a bit about the user experience, for which we know Whereby has gotten a lot of love. And could you talk a bit about the Whereby in-meeting user interface itself? Like, what's different about it, and why do customers love it?
Yeah, I think the first thing to highlight, which is very fundamental, is that Whereby runs entirely inside of your browser. So there are no extensions, there are no plugins, there is no native application that you have to download. Then if we click into the experience you have once you're in the meeting, this is where I think Whereby really stands out. We have built what we internally call an opinionated meeting stage. And by the meeting stage, I'm sort of referring to, this place in your browser where you can see everybody's face and hear their voice, and you can mute and unmute your microphone, and the kind of gestures that we've become used to in this pandemic era. Our meeting stage tries to be a participant in the conversation, is the way I describe it. Our meeting stage has a lot of business logic encoded into it that is trying to recognize what is happening in the conversation so that the stage arranges itself in a way that's optimal for whatever's going on. From there, then, we can double click into the meeting stage itself. And by the meeting stage, I mean this experience that we've all become quite familiar with, where you can see and hear everybody and mute and unmute your microphone and enter breakout groups and so on. Our version of the meeting stage is dynamic and opinionated. We've developed a meeting stage that is trying to be a helpful participant in the conversation itself. So examples of this: the meeting stage rearranges itself depending on what's happening in the meeting, right? So as the number of participants in the meeting grows, for example, you'll see the participants sort of arrange themselves into a kind of audience and a presenter area and the presentation content area. And those things will sort of adapt as participants join and leave and people turn on their video. Mute and unmute their microphone is another big one. We have a simple rule that I personally really love, where when you unmute your microphone, you will sort of move from the audience to the stage. And it's a great way to indicate that you're about to speak, which in turn helps combat that very fatiguing experience that we've all been having for the last 3 years of accidentally talking over each other and being unsure who's going to talk next. So we've made a lot of these investments in our user experience that have been based on fairly deep behavioral research that we've done over the course of the last 5 years. And it's everything from the sort of more complex business logic I've just described to simpler things like the colors that we use and the sort of shapes of our UI elements, all of which are, based in some amount of research designed to make the experience less fatiguing and more engaging on an ongoing basis from everybody involved. And we get a lot of feedback from our customers, especially folks that do spend much of their time, much of their day inside of Whereby meetings, that, as they migrated from Whereby from migrated to Whereby from some other providers, that they actually found the experience much less fatiguing for them day to day. And so, again, this is part of Whereby core kind of ethos, is trying to keep ourselves attached to the very human problems that come with trying to create a substitute way of human interaction. And so then what we can offer to Whereby embedded customers is the benefit of all of that experimentation and all of that research that we've done over the better part of a decade to build this industry-leading experience.
Thank you so much for sharing all this great information, Andy. It's a great starting point for us. We'll probably do more of these sessions as well. So thanks again. Feel free to check us out on YouTube and other places with great content from the Whereby team. Thanks for joining, everyone. We'll see you soon.